Welcome everyone to a special Halloween episode of Legion Gaming. I am your host Donnie, and as always, I'm joined by co-host Deucy.
We have once again stepped into the world of survival horror.
Deucy, I am ready for more survival horror. Today's episode, for everyone listening out there, it's a special bonus episode. We're covering one of our favorite games, Resident Evil, for basically the PS1 and really the remake that came on the GameCube. It's a great time. It's one of our, I think this is the first sort of bonus episode I think we've really done, at least themed.
Yeah, that's kind of out of order. You'll notice it's releasing today on Halloween.
Yeah, on
which
a
is
special Thursday.
Back on our old Thursday slot.
Yeah, that's true. We're going back a little old school with this. Yeah. It's going to be a great episode. We're very excited to talk about Resident Evil. We did a great top 10 Resident Evil games episode last year.
We also did Code Veronica this year.
We did Code Veronica for its anniversary this year. Last year, you and I both put basically the remake, I think it was, which really is Resident Evil 1, at number 2 on both our lists. I think that was 1 and 2 we were pretty much deadlocked with. Resident Evil 2 being 1 and Resident Evil 1 being 2, the remake. Yeah. So this has been kind of a long time coming. This is definitely one episode that we always had our eyes locked on. It's just, I guess a matter of timing when we wanted to do it, and there's no better time than Halloween, Deucy.
I always thought we would do 2 before this, but
that's also true too.
But we also already did Code Veronica, so
yeah,
we're all over the place.
Yeah, but we just figured we'll strike while the iron is hot. We did Doom a couple weeks. Actually, it would have been last week. Because it's on the 25th, and we did that. Previous to that was Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And if you're following us on Instagram, which you absolutely should be, we're wrapping up the 31 games of horror this month at Legion Gaming Podcast on Instagram. So do follow us there, because I usually post all my cool collection stuff, some of our pickups. It's usually a lot of fun there. People seem to enjoy the photos I take and all the cool crap we get to put up on there.
Also, the stuff you mentioned on the episodes, we'll sometimes see, like that fighting the boss in Castlevania was hilarious.
I really wanted to do that because I knew I could. I'd done it when I beat it.
Yeah,
I was like, that'd be a really cool snippet because it's like 10 seconds long and I killed both final bosses in less time than it took for me to say this. You know? So yeah, we do post little videos like that. There's ads for like old games, reviews. There's a ton of fun stuff. There's really just a treasure trove of media out there, and I just kind of pick and pull what looks kind of cool and post it for everyone, and everyone seems to enjoy it. So thank you to all our followers. If you're not following us, again, Legion Gaming Podcast on Instagram. Deucy, before we get into the bits and pieces of survival horror, what have you been playing lately?
Well, still playing Dead Space because it's the spooky month. Hopefully I will have this finished before the end, because come November 1st, it's no longer spooky time, and like a spirit Halloween, all of the scary stuff is going to go away into the closet. It just feels deflated at that point. Yeah, I'll probably go back to, I don't know, Mafia or something randomly in November.
Something less exciting, like, I miss Halloween Dead Space.
But beyond that, I have been playing a lot of handheld, because like Dead Space is my main console game right now. And then if anything else is going on, if we're watching TV in bed or even on the couch, I'll pick up my Switch, or, thanks to you, the Analogue Pocket.
Oh, yeah. I love that Analogue Pocket, Deucy. Yeah.
Like, that thing is such a great invention. I had seen an advertisement for it, like, shortly before you said you got one. And I sort of, like, brushed it off as one of those Chinese knockoffs that's got 500 games.
Yeah, because those are everywhere. Yeah. There's ads everywhere. Like, we got 3,000 games. It's a piece of crap handheld.
Yeah, but this was really interesting. You can put in any Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and then even GameGear with the adapter. Mm-hmm. And then it just emulates the game in, like, much better resolution and everything.
Yeah, it emulates the hardware versus just being software emulation. So it's not like it's it's not like a Raspberry Pi in this thing and running an emulator for that. It emulates the hardware, which means that there's much more compatibility, and also they have a few different video modes where you can, like, the Game Boy one's really cool because it can mimic the original, like, green and black, or the Game Boy Pocket color. I mean, the Game Boy Pocket screen, or of course, just the really nice. I think it's an IPS screen it has on there. It's really good. It's really nice. Because I bought these for us because they released Game Boy Color editions. I was like, well, I have to have these.
Yeah.
So I got myself the Kiwi one. I got you the Berry one. And I knew it would be, like, perfect for you because you're always into playing, like, the old carts, using, like, your Game Boy Advance or whatever else. So, like, this thing's perfect for them. Like, you're just going to end up diving in. The GameGear adapter is even more awesome because it plays all GameGear games. There's also one where You could play TurboGrafx and PC Engine games, which is really cool. Like you get an adapter for that and Neo Geo Pocket. It's really impressive.
I was kind of interested in looking into that and finally getting some TurboGrafx games for it, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's really come in handy because, I've been collecting a lot more of the handheld games now when we go to the shops, and just recently picked up Jurassic Park on GameGear, so I can't wait to get into that. Ended up playing Power Rangers on GameGear because we couldn't stop talking about it. And beat it in one sitting really quick.
That one looks really nice too, because you sent me a photo of the screen, and I just love the screen of this thing too, because it just makes everything look so much better.
Yeah.
But that Power Ranger game almost looks like it almost looked like 16-bit, like a lower end, like early 16-bit game, but it looks pretty damn good on this thing.
You can even throw in the way the original screens looked on GameGear, which I didn't do for that, but because I wanted to see it in upscaled or looking better. But then I have been playing a ton of Donkey Kong Country, the Game Boy Advance version, and I'll switch off between like the modern look and then also what the Game Boy Advance SP would look like.
Yeah,
because it's funny, if you do the original Game Boy Advance screen, it actually makes it dark.
Yeah, so it's because also the Game Boy Advance SP, there's a model, I think it's called like the A001, something like that.
Yeah.
That actually has a little bit better screen than the old Game Boy Advances. Because I don't even know if like my SP has that. I can't tell. But those are usually a bit more sought after because they're a little bit brighter and they look a little bit better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really cool that the Analog includes both variants of the screen on there.
I could just keep, like every other level, I'll keep switching. But I was very surprised with the Donkey Kong Country Advance, I guess you could call it. It is actually quite different from the Super Nintendo version. Like, all the levels are exactly the same, but it's this little stuff in between that's kind of a treat for people who may have played the Super Nintendo versions a ton. And you're like, oh, I don't want to pick this up because it's nothing new, but it is. Because you can save anywhere, which is a neat advancement, they turned like Candy's Save Shop into this like rhythm matching dancing studio.
Yeah.
And Funky, you can fly from there, but you can also call him anywhere on the map and fly. So instead, he also has a fishing mini game.
That's pretty badass. Even though it's funny because he's flying.
Yeah. So while you're doing all that, like while you're going through the levels, there's also these little cameras you can pick up, and they give you these little pictures of the enemies or pictures of the levels that you're in, and it's just one more thing to collect and to go towards your 100%. It's also interesting that like they've added a continuity thing where like once you beat it, Cranky comes out and he starts talking and everything, and he makes wisecracks about sequels, and it's just really fun again. It's like playing almost a brand new game.
Yeah, almost. I know it because we'd covered the whole Donkey Kong trilogy and Donkey Kong 64 again last year, which again is crazy. That's a year ago.
Yeah.
But we had talked a little bit about the Game Boy Advance portion. We hadn't really played them because I think, but for us at that time, we were just out of high school and a little bit more selective about what we're spending our money on because we only had so much of it. I think we just kind of dismissed the Donkey Kong games on Game Boy Advance or just never really saw them.
Yeah, even though we had jobs at that point, we had some disposable income. I think we were using it a lot more on console games.
Yeah,
because
especially.
Those were bigger releases.
Or newer Game Boy Advance games.
Yeah, or we were just going to the movies a lot, But whatever it was, we were definitely like, no, we don't need these games. We have our Super Nintendo still.
Exactly. I think that's what it was. And it was interesting when you were just telling me all the changes. Like, that's actually pretty different. That's almost like a remaster treatment in a way, even though it's condensed to a Game Boy Advance.
They changed up quite a few of the boss battles, too.
I remember reading about that, though, which because some definitely needed it, like the drum boss, the oil drum guy.
Yeah, the drum you actually have to hit now with explosive barrels. The second bird fight is both birds at once.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big difference.
Yeah.
Even though those bosses aren't that hard to begin with, but I guess if you got double their nuts thrown at you, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, they the second beaver, he now like jumps and stalactites fall on you.
Oh,
you have to do a little extra dodging.
They did that a little bit more then.
Yeah. But I think K. Rool is still pretty much the same, and they made him easier where you knock him down and they have those fake credits and then he comes back up. If you die in the second round after those credits, you restart just from that second round.
Oh, that's surprising. It's almost like a checkpoint.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, this is really easy then.
Yeah, because his boss fight isn't that hard, really. Like it's maybe a little bit too long, but actually, it works out if there's like a little bit of a checkpoint between them. Yeah. Was that the only ones you were playing? Just the DKC trilogy? And
I mean, there's been a ton of the handheld games, but I can't remember like individual ones. Oh, I played a little bit of the Donkey Kong Country for Game Boy Color.
Yeah,
which is, I mean, definitely a downgrade.
That one,
but it's I mean, it's just interesting that they put it out for that.
Yeah, I do remember my brother got that when we were kids, and I don't remember too much of it. I do remember beating it back then, and he has our copy, and then I found another copy pretty recently. But I do remember enjoying that because it was a portable Donkey Kong Country, and yeah, it has its compromises to the Game Boy Color, but it played fine. Yeah, I enjoyed it enough. It was just like Donkey Kong Land for me, you know?
I even found out that these aren't region locked. Like, I was playing Pokemon Red, the Japanese version.
Yeah, the Analogue Pockets, there's no region locking at all. So you could play, whatever cart you have, which I didn't know until you had tested. I was like, that's really awesome too.
Yeah.
Because you can also change the Super Game Boy palettes too. And I think there's a way you can load your own custom palettes if you want to, which means I'm sure someone online has like, they probably have palettes for each game. You probably have to load them in there.
Yeah.
But it's still really cool that it's an option if you do want to go that route. I think it's totally fine just playing it as is with the palettes it does have on the actual hardware itself.
Yeah, the possibilities on this thing are now endless. Like I can go back and play some of those Castlevanias that we were talking about too.
Yeah, usually could. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It has a rechargeable battery. It's just a fantastic option if you want to play, carts. I know there's a way you can hack it and play ROMs and emulators, which is great if you want to do that. Like, they're technically not meant for that, right?
Yeah.
Because the whole thing, it's like it's meant to be original hardware and all that, which is fantastic in its own right. But yeah, I'm really impressed with the handheld. They're going to release a Nintendo 64 version of that console soon.
Yeah, I was interested in that too because I when you first showed me, I was like, wait, is this a handheld N64? That'd be weird. But
no, it's a full blown recreated hardware,
and it's probably beneficial to me because my N64 was notorious for freezing.
Yeah, well, even mine has issues too, and I think it's really just related to the fact that it's an old console on a newer TV, and this TV is like 7 years old.
Oh, that's right. Sometimes it doesn't
it just doesn't pick up the signal because I think I've read things like the signal just isn't strong enough coming from the hardware from the N64 to that, which is silly a thing, but I mean that's what it is. Sometimes I'm sitting there like turning it off and on until it catches, so to speak. So I was interested in getting the I think they call it the Analogue 3D. It's like $250, which you could put that value on anything else. It's just like how much you'll get out of it. I think it's a really cool. If you enjoy the N64 or like the Pocket games, yeah, you're going to find value $250 in there easily. Which is who's going to buy it to begin with.
They give you a controller that is set up kind of like modern controllers.
Yeah, it's a modernized N64 controller.
But they also give you the ports so you can use all your old controllers. Yeah, I would say for that price, I find more value in that than a $700 PS5 Pro.
Well, and that's the thing, right? And that's all relative to anyone else, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'll probably end up buying the Pro just because I can.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, not everyone's going to pay money for that thing. And just like the Analogue 3D, it's like you're not going to pay $250 unless you really want to play N64 games on hardware. Because the other side of it, right, is like, let's say you want to get another N64. I think they go like, without being complete, like $80 to $100.
Yeah, that's
right.
Kind of wild for a console.
Yeah,
like an old console.
So you figure $150 extra, right? And I know it's hard to say you're doubling the price 2.5 times, but out of the box it works. It has HDMI out, it upscales, it does everything an N64 does, but you're paying the equivalent of like a brand new N64 in 1996, but it works.
Does it also have those like screen options like the Game Boy where you could make it look like a CRT?
It does. What I'm hoping to see that they haven't shown off yet is sort of like a demo or like a video demo because they literally just announced it. And it sucks because pre-orders go up the 21st, which I think is Monday.
Yeah.
But it's like, it would be nice if they showed some video or like, just like a 10-minute tech video of like, here's what this looks like, here's what that looks like, right? Just to show you what it does look like instead of just, it's probably gonna be great because it's analog, but it's also like I'd like to see what you're buying for $250 at the same time. You know? Yeah. For my games I've been playing lately, beyond the fact I'm still getting through Silent Hill 2 and Zelda, I got into a game called Retro Realms Halloween and Ash vs. Evil Dead. I'm not a fan of that name because it just sounds...
That is a mouthful.
It's a mouthful, but it's a really cool side-scrolling horror game developed by WayForward, which I love WayForward. They did the Contra Operation Galuga.
They did DuckTales.
They did DuckTales Remastered. They've done Contra 4. They've done Shantae. They're really great at 2D games is what I'm trying to get the point across.
Yeah.
So this one is, you can play as either multiple characters. There's Michael Myers from Halloween, and he has like his own game. It's set up like an arcade cabinet, so you could play his game on his arcade cabinet. And it's just like, it's a side-scrolling kind of beat 'em up thing. Like you have your basic attacks, so you could slash and kill enemies. It's pretty gory.
Are the enemies just like teenagers?
Well, no, it's like, there's one, you could kill a nurse and she gives you like pickups like weapons. Like he could throw a pitchfork, right? That's kind of like how you get power-ups. But most enemies are like, it's just like fodder. Like they're just kind of insane people or some sort of monstrous thing. And it has the gimmick where you could go into the dead world by hitting A. So it's like it turns everything where you get more platforms where everything looks like a living organism that you're walking through, like like a dead world.
Dude, like Stranger Things, the Upside Down.
Yeah, kind of like that. Exactly. Yeah. And then there's also Ash versus Evil Dead, which is based on his sort of TV show, and it's a whole separate game and a whole separate cabinet. But you could also play as Michael Myers in there too. It's really just like two games in one, and sort of like two different universes in one, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if they coincide later on. I've only played a few levels last night, but it's really cool. I really enjoyed it so far. It's kind of difficult. It plays well. It looks really great. It's got a sense of humor, and also it's just it has this really cool mode where you can it has like a museum, so you go in the back room and like you earn tickets in the game. Like you just collect them, like you just find these movie tickets, and you can unlock like props or memorabilia from the movies that has like a little bit of history snippet.
Nice.
There's like this really cool developer video, like you put in these VHS tapes, and it's just like developers talking about their favorite horror games or development of the game. It's a really cool little product, little package. I don't know how many people know about this because it was announced, and people who did see the trailer thought it was really cool looking, but I haven't seen any mainstream press about it at all.
Yeah, like I remember you showing us, I think in the group chat, like a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a few months ago.
And then all of a sudden I'd forgotten all about it because I'm not a fan really of that genre.
Yeah.
But when it comes to games, I mean, that looked really interesting. I'd probably pick it up still and try and play it.
It's worth, I'm sure it's like $20 or $25. I don't know how much it is because I got like the physical set, which comes with all this extra crap, but they delayed that, and for the delay, they're like, hey, here's a digital code. I was like, you could have just delayed the game for like a week is all it was. Like I wouldn't have been upset, but they went the extra mile. I think it was like Boss Team Games or something like that. They went the extra mile to give everyone like a digital code. So it's like you get your physical version no matter what, and they give you like a code, and since you want to play it now because it came out this week. So it's really cool of them, and I've been really enjoying it because I just love those side-scrolling platformers. They're just like my bread and butter, what we grew up on.
Yeah,
but it's got like a really cool twist, and there's multiple playable characters. Like you play as Laurie Strode, who's from the original Halloween. You could play as, I forgot what her name is. Her name's like Kelly or Ashley Maxwell. She's from Ash vs. Evil Dead, I guess. I haven't really watched the show.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But they all have different play styles as well. So there's a lot. It feels like there's a lot of meat to this game so far. There's leaderboards. There's collectibles. I'm sure there's some unlockables. I really like it so far. It's perfect for like the Halloween season.
Yeah, it's definitely a hidden gem, a surprise.
I would say so. I think it's going to be a bit of a hidden gem, at least for me. I know my brother's going to be excited about it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other game I've been playing that I didn't even get to mention last time because I totally forgot about it was the Marvel vs. Capcom collection that came out.
Oh, yeah.
The fighting game collection.
Me too.
Yeah, so we've been eagerly anticipating that ever since it was released. The Marvel vs. Capcom games, we covered all of those in our wonderful series of episodes where we covered like the X-Men games and Marvel games.
I think like shortly after I got this collection, I re-listened to that
Did
episode.
You? Well, I think we released it shortly before it came out, like that last episode, yeah. Which covered all the fighting games up until 2017, which is Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. So the collection came out digitally in late September. And it's as fantastic as I expected, right? Like I have the arcade one up, which has all the games that are on here, but now they're on console. And more importantly for me, I can play them online with people because the arcade one up has online, but there's so few people on it, and it's only killers. It's kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
But I've been enjoying the hell out of having it online because you can select all the games in the collection, and it just match makes with whatever's available, whatever matches it finds.
Oh, it randomizes the games.
Yeah, or you can select specific ones. Yeah. But I just like to play all of them, even though it's like kind of
because a lot of them are all the same.
They're really similar, yeah. And the biggest jump is like going from Marvel's Capcom 1 to 2 because 2 has 4 buttons instead of 6. So I have to like unwrap my mind if I'm going back from the older games to the newer ones. But I freaking love it. Like I've been really enjoying that. I know you've been playing a Deucy too because I know you've been playing the single player, right?
Yeah,
more of the single player.
I think I've played the single player in pretty much all of them now.
Yeah.
The very first one, I think it's X-Men. Is Children of the Atom.
Children of the Atom. Yeah.
That one is hard as hell.
It's really hard.
God, I barely got past like the second round of fighters, and then I beat one of them. I want to say Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter.
I think that was the one you finished.
Is that the one with Cyber Akuma?
Yes.
He was actually kind of easy.
It's funny because I think he's a son of a bitch because he's pretty hard. Yeah, or he can be at least.
I only took 3 tries. Like I surprised myself.
Yeah.
But then I fought the one where Onslaught is in it.
That's Marvel's Capcom 1, and he is probably the worst boss of that series.
I got to him, I died instantly like a couple times, and I was like, that's good enough. I got to him.
Well, it's funny because we did our worst bosses episode a while back, and I mentioned Onslaught. I don't think you had knew about Onslaught at the time. I can't recall. But now you know, because Onslaught is probably the cheap, like Apocalypse in, I think it's X-Men versus Street Fighter. He's the last boss there. He was pretty bad. But they really went to like complete BS when Marvel's Capcom and Onslaught.
Freaking Onslaught is like the majority of the screen.
He's the majority of the screen. He does insane chip damage with beam attacks.
Yeah.
I really don't know how to beat him. Like I remember when I was younger, I beat him with Mega Man and whoever else, and that was like once. And I barely survived that. Like there's no way I was going to beat it to get multiple endings in that.
I think I got to the final boss in MVC 2.
He's a pushover.
That one though, I screwed myself because I didn't realize he had 3 parts.
Oh yeah,
I was down to like my last guy and a half, and I beat the second form, and I was like, phew. And then all of a sudden he starts growing again to being kind of like Onslaught size, and I was like, nope, I'm dead.
Yeah, he's pretty easy though because he doesn't do much when he's in that third form.
Yeah,
and like you could kind of cheese most of the supers in there. At that point, I think Capcom was like, "Yeah, we made Onslaught too hard, so let's just make Abyss insanely easy." Because he's not that bad. Like he could be kind of annoying, but he's probably more of a pushover than even some of the earlier fights before that.
Yeah, that could be. I've actually been thinking about going online and playing against human people for once.
It's pretty fun because it's not as bad. Like there's definitely going to be people who know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I'm doing. I kind of know, right? But I'm not like on their level where it's like they can open you up with one hit and keep it going. I know how to kind of beat most people on the average side. But I think like the matchmaking is done well enough to where you're probably going to get ranked with like lower end people to begin with. And also like once you get like the basics of the games, I think it's not as bad because the combos are actually easier to do than you think. Like they're just chain combos. But of course, that's, you got to lose like 37 times before you win one sometimes.
Well, as long as it keeps my rank low.
Yeah, that's also true, I guess. Yeah, you get 1 point per loss.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that'll wrap it up for that. So Deucy, I think it's time for us to go into the mansion and venture into Resident Evil. All right, Deucy, we're here. We are ready to talk Resident Evil. The original release for Resident Evil was on the PS1 on April 1st, 1996. That game, my goodness, like I had a friend who got it, and he told me about it, but I didn't know anything about Resident Evil until then. I think I borrowed it from him, and then barely played. Like the only thing I really remember was the you remember the Crow Room later in the game with the paintings. Mm-hmm. That's where I remember most, and dying in there.
Yep, I can see why.
Yeah, so for some reason that didn't stop me or my brother, and we ended up just like finishing the game and loving it. But this game in 96 kind of kicked off survival horror as we know it. Is really what it is, right? Sort of the beginnings of survival horror. It's sort of solidified everything that would be defined within the genre, and I think it's one of the more significant games we'll cover, at least for now. I think, right?
Yeah, like I mentioned last episode, this is yet another game that can go up in some sort of museum as like the start of something big.
Yeah, and yeah,
it also like it takes into account Metroidvanias. Even though it's in 3D, it is very heavily like funneling you around to picking up items and then backtracking to unlock other doors and things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you only have so much progression before you're literally just stuck and you have to solve some sort of puzzle or find what you're missing, which you're definitely missing something.
and you will definitely find a puzzle somewhere.
You'll definitely find somewhere along with some zombies and something else.
Yep.
Yeah. But I think before we get into Resident Evil, we kind of have to set the stage for what survival horror was before then, because Resident Evil rightfully, it's known as like the godfather of survival horror for good reason. There were games before it that did it. It just, it was just a different time and they just didn't do it as well. And I think the earliest example that's also directly influenced Resident Evil was Sweet Home, which was a Japanese horror game released on the Famicom in 1989. So this was a role-playing game that was developed and published by Capcom. It's based on a Japanese horror movie that's also known as called, it's called Sweet Home. It's also called the Mamiya House.
There's I think it's on Netflix or something. There's a new show called Sweet Home, or I can't remember if it's a show or a new movie.
I wonder if that's related because I haven't heard of that.
That's what I've been trying to find out.
Yeah, because the whole story, even with the movie and the game, it's interesting because it's a movie-based game, right? Which you don't really regard that as Sweet Home. Like it's just when people usually talk about Sweet Home, they consider like a survival horror game on the NES or the Famicom, but it's actually tied to a movie. And the movie, the whole plot is around 5 filmmakers who explore an old mansion, which sounds familiar.
Yep.
They're trying to find these fresco paintings, and they encounter a bunch of ghosts and other supernatural elements, which, my God, I mean, that's Resident Evil in a nutshell, really, more or less, except the supernatural aspect of it.
Resident Evil meets Ghostbusters.
Yeah, Ghostbusters and Resident Evil, that's a great combo. And this game back then, it was really limited. Like, it was meant to be, like, just sort of a... you scroll through the mansion, like there's not really too much movement. You have a limited inventory system and weapons, and there's only so many health items. And just like you said, Deuce, it's kind of set up like a Metroidvania where it's like you're going to backtrack into certain rooms or certain things to unlock puzzles or get through the game.
I feel like from the screenshots I've seen, it looks like you walk around kind of like a Final Fantasy perspective.
Yes.
And that was really interesting. The more I read about this, I was like, man, I really wish they had brought it over translated, or even like make a remake now or something.
I wish they would. I know there's fan translations, and you can get like these ROM hacked versions that people have made like for, $60, $70, and it's like it has a Sweet Home art and like a red card and all that. But I wish there was some sort of official release, like, the Switch Online app constantly releases these random Japanese games on the NES app.
Yeah.
Sweet Home would be a great one. I'm sure maybe they're apprehensive because of the violence in it. Like, I don't know how much gore is in it, but I imagine it's not like,
It's 8 bits, though.
Yeah, but it's Nintendo. Nintendo made an entire separate N64 app for mature games with 2 games in it,
It's going to look like a ketchup packet in Minecraft.
Yeah, it's going to look absolutely ridiculous, but, Nintendo, I feel like they made worse decisions for smaller things.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a shame we never got released because it is such an influence on Resident Evil that it's a shame that we just haven't seen it since then. And after Sweet Home, there was some earlier survival horror games previous to Resident Evil. I found a few. There's Dr. Hauser, which was a 3DO game in Japan.
Oh.
It was kind of like Alone in the Dark. There's Friday the 13th for NES, which is the one I was most familiar with because I own that. That game was really hard and also just very confusing as a kid. So
I know.
It was kind of bad.
That game was so confusing. You didn't even know you were supposed to be scared.
Exactly. Yeah. You just felt like surviving, but you didn't know how to survive because you're just getting. Yeah. It's a rough game, but it has some interesting ideas. It's just I'm sure the manual would have helped, which I didn't have.
That's true.
There's also Alien on the Commodore 64. There's a smaller game called Project Firestart on the Commodore 64. There's also an example that I didn't even take down here, but there was a Clock Tower on the Super Famicom.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so I don't see, for me, like, I was considered that as a PS1 series because that's when we got it, but I didn't realize it started on the Super Famicom in Japan, and I think it was 92 or something like that.
When we got it on the PS1, was it all like an all new 3D version, or was it that Super Famicom?
See, I can't remember because I know they went to 3D. I don't know if it was Clock Tower 2 or if it was Clock Tower 1 on PS1. I'm not sure. I think it was 3D on the PS1, but it's been so long that I couldn't remember it.
Yeah.
The other big game that would eventually lead to Resident Evil, this one's the one that's probably most compared to, it's Alone in the Dark. And this was a DOS game released by Infogrames in 92. This one carried the format of Sweet Home, where it's like you're in a mansion. It's like a 1920s Louisiana mansion, and you have to uncover why a painter named Jeremy Hartwood committed suicide. So it has a really morbid premise to begin with.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, and you play as a male or female protagonist in here, and for here, like, it has really limited combat. Like, it's almost like a boxing thing. It looks really silly, like you're almost like boxing a ghost. It's just like early 90s combat. It looks kind of crappy, but for the most part, like you have to avoid enemies. There's a lot of puzzle solving. It's similar to Resident Evil where there's like opening and closing of doors, pushing of objects.
It's got fixed cameras too, right?
It does. Yeah. Fixed cameras. And it was also ported to the 3DO and eventually the Mac and iOS. And later on, there was Alone in the Dark 2, which came out in 93, and that was ported on the Saturn and PS1 in 96 under the name Alone in the Dark One Night Jack's Revenge, which is the thing I posted just yesterday leading up to Resident Evil. So that's all kind of staying the tale before Resident Evil started, which is, for me, like, I can't help but center around Resident Evil when I think of survival horror. It's just there's games that have been done before. They're more of an influence more than they were sort of like iconic games.
Alone in the Dark, I've seen screenshots, and like, it is definitely the Wolfenstein to Resident Evil's Doom.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
Because like it's very basic and plain with the shapes and the way the rooms look. And there's like maybe one enemy at a time in the rooms against you.
It's really limited. Like,
yeah.
It's hard to play now because it just feels so dated. Like if you were to compare Resident Evil 1, which came out, 4 years after, which is quite a bit of time in 90s terms, like 4 years is a pretty big generational leap. But, Alone in the Dark 1 just ages so bad. I don't know if they've remade it since.
Yeah, they recently
like
did.
Like an enhanced port. Did they do that?
No, they just recently did that one with actual actors like David
Oh,
Harbour.
yeah, there was that actual remake.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to play that because I heard it wasn't bad. I just heard it wasn't great.
I think it is based on the original story, right?
It would make sense. Yeah. I think it is. Yeah, you're right.
Because I think they're in Louisiana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they made the other Alone in the Dark, which,
Oh, yeah.
that was like in the mid-2000s that was poorly received.
The Alone in the Dark series has not had a good reputation for as long as I've heard about it.
Yeah, and yet it's one of the oldest series.
Yeah.
Like 32 years, it's still going, which, it's great. When we hear so much about being canceled and this and that, it's kind of nice that it still exists, but it's almost like a wonder how it still exists when a lot of the games have been unremarkable or just bad.
Yeah.
Why
are you keeping this alive and we can't get like a sequel to a game we really want?
Yeah, like, come on, we're still waiting for a Dino Crisis remake or something.
Yeah.
Come on. So that was survival horror before Resident Evil. And Resident Evil, believe it or not, Deucy, was actually intended to be on the... What were they trying to get on? I think it was the 3DO. Oh, no, sorry. It was for the Super Nintendo.
Yeah,
I got it all backwards.
that's right.
That's what it was. I went backwards. Sorry, yeah. So what had happened in Capcom at this time in the early 90s, Shinji Mikami, he's one of the most notable people in Capcom. Like he's a designer, producer, director. He's worked on the Mega Man series. Like he did character designs for Mega Man way back in the day. He's worked on basically, if you could name any Capcom franchise, he's probably worked on it, including like creating Devil May Cry. He's created Resident Evil. He's created Onimusha was another game he had created. Like there's just so much he's had his hand in that. Capcom is really part of Shinji Mikami. So they tasked him with creating a new game that was set in a haunted mansion. And originally they wanted to make a remake of Sweet Home. But it turns out that they couldn't get the license, or they didn't have the rights to Sweet Home anymore. So they had to invent a totally new universe, which
that makes sense. Because, yeah, like you said, I always forget it was a movie.
Exactly.
I'm like,
I never connected it.
I was like, Sweet Home is just Capcom's, right? No.
Yeah. That's what I thought. I thought it was like a Capcom original for the longest time.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was based on actual piece of media that they had to license. So it's interesting that we almost got a remake of Sweet Home, but it actually worked out better that we didn't get Sweet Home.
I kind of like this physical, like zombies or monsters. Like the idea of the ghosts and everything were interesting, but I don't know. I feel like that would be weird to try and fight.
Yeah, and I think
or try to avoid.
For me, and of course, this is like also like sort of bias of like reading things over time and everything. Like even Shin Mikami, like one of the things that Resident Evil was inspired by was like Zombie, like this old Italian horror movie.
Oh yeah,
and like Dawn of the Dead, like those Romero era type movies, right? He said like his thing was he thought zombies were more scary and also it was just different than supernatural horror. So they want to make something that's like a little bit more grisly and nightmarish versus supernatural. For me, I think there's a little bit more fear and creepiness in like this bioexperimentation and viruses. Mm-hmm. Notwithstanding the fact that we lived through a pandemic 4 years ago.
I think our generation has grown up with Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
And that made ghosts sort of a comedy. Even if they had like scary faces when they come like rushing at you, but it was still just sort of a thing to like laugh at.
Yeah, it almost was like an amusement park ride. Right?
Yeah.
Like, any game you play like that, it's really just you're waiting for the scares to come up because they're ghosts. So it's like they're either going to kind of harm you or not harm you.
That's the other thing. Like if you've ever been to Disneyland, you go to a haunted mansion and that's just like ghosts dancing around and singing to you. Like this felt more like tactile. Like, oh no, the zombies are chasing me.
Well, and also there's also more narrative piece behind it because ghosts were people too, but the zombies you're fighting were people who were infected and now are eating other people.
Yeah.
So I think there's like a next level of horror there when it's more rooted in like the reality versus just ghosts. They don't exist. Like, it's supernatural. It's not like...
Even to this day, they still make ghosts sort of a comedy. Like, there's the show on CBS called Ghosts.
Yeah.
And it's just a comedy.
Exactly.
Like, they don't try to make ghosts... Now, if there is going to be a scary ghost, it's usually, like, possessing something else.
Yeah, exactly. Which doesn't... I just don't think it's as effective. So I'm glad that... however, they wanted to keep Sweet Home sort of in the realm of Capcom, and they probably had a connection to that because it was part of their roots. I'm glad it didn't work out.
Yeah.
I think what we ended up with was far more interesting than what they could have done with Sweet Home.
I mean, you also get the chance to write an all original story that has spanned like 8 games or more. And whereas with Sweet Home, you would have been like retelling the movie again. Or
exactly.
Something.
Yeah. And again, it's a remake. So it's like, it was a different thing at the time. And I don't know how it would have worked out, because actually it's even more interesting is that this was originally going to be a first-person game. Like, they tried to render everything in 3D. They actually got to the prototyping phase, and they eventually decided that it wasn't going to work. And at this time, when they prototyped, it was actually more in like supernatural Japanese horror. So even then, they're still kind of trying to mimic.
Well, that would have been
Sweet
scary.
Home. Yeah, first person would have made sense, but also like first person on PS1 was rough.
Yeah,
especially even in '96.
Just look at Resident Evil Survivor.
Exactly, and that was
98,
98, something like that, 99. Yeah, so. This went through a few iterations before they landed on zombie horror and bio horror and everything like that. So like I said, it was originally going to be a first-person game, and then they later decided that like it just wasn't going to work. They even worked out a co-op into it. I don't know what the components were, but apparently there's like a prototype that's out there. It does exist, or at least a footage of it. So it's just, it would have been a totally different game if it was first-person. I don't think we'd be talking about Resident Evil now if it was a supernatural first-person shooter.
No, it probably would have gone the wayside of like Fear or some of those other first-person like trying to be scary games.
I think so. Yeah.
Fear or Condemned, one of those.
Exactly. Yeah. It would have been, I don't know, it's just hard to think about what it could have been.
Yeah.
And versus what we got. So, and like you said, Deucy, the Alone in the Dark camera system was also inspired Resident Evil. Initially, Capcom and Mikami thought that it would kind of break the immersion because of this fixed view, but it turns out it's the direct opposite. Like, if anything, it makes you more apprehensive, more scared about what's around that corner because you physically can't see what's around that next corner.
It made me feel like I was watching a TV or like a TV show or a movie.
Yeah, and also it worked out because they naturally realized that with the fixed camera angles, they could move to pre-rendered backgrounds. Because that was a challenge too. Is like with 3D, the PS1 was it just couldn't really do it, and I imagine it would look far worse than what the game actually does. But they realized like with the pre-rendered backgrounds, you get a lot more detail in there because they're basically like high-res photos that are rendered and then thrown in the game with 3D models on top of it.
Yeah, it looks kind of funny now on our HD TVs.
It sticks out so much,
but it worked perfectly with CRTs.
It did.
Did Alone in the Dark have pre-rendered backgrounds?
I think it did. I can't remember actually because I haven't played that in a long time.
If it did, they did not do a good job on those.
I imagine if they were probably just like super low res because you have to figure like it's on 1992 PC hardware.
Yeah.
Like that's, you can only make so much of that. If this is what they milked out of Resident Evil in 96, I mean, I can't imagine what they would milk out of a PC in 1992 with 3D and fixed camera angles and like this whole
They were lucky
big
it wasn't
mansion.
It wasn't one of those black and green screens.
Oh God, that would have been awful. I don't think it would have survived.
Yeah, no.
So that was sort of the development history of that game, and I will say Capcom initially when they made this game, they really thought it was only going to sell around 200,000 copies because these figures like a niche horror thing, and horror wasn't a big thing for gaming back then. Like it was, even like when I was trying to build our list for the 31 games of horror, I was thinking like there's not a ton of 16-bit notable horror games. Like it was just you had Splatterhouses, Chac-On, like you had a bunch of these one-offs, right? Zombies Ate My Neighbors.
Oh yeah.
But there wasn't anything that was like Resident Evil or like true zombie horror or anything like that. They were just kind of limited, or they were terrible, like Nosferatu or Dracula. So this was definitely representative of an era where they weren't sure how it was going to work out, and it was a risk. But it didn't matter. It sold millions. Like it sold, I think, like 2 million within the first year or something like that, which surpassed all expectations.
I don't know how. Like, it was that huge right off the bat, and I didn't hear about the series until Resident Evil 2 came out.
I know. It's the thing is like, because I don't think we were in the horror at that time. Like,
yeah.
If my friend hadn't told me about it, I would have never heard about this game. I just remember the long box. He told me about it. I don't know where he learned of it, probably from school or something. But I don't know. Like, it's interesting how it was like word of mouth spread that game around for the most part, because I'm sure I'd seen ads and everything, but I didn't know what I was looking at back then.
Yeah.
Who did, So the English version, so there's some pretty interesting differences between the English and Japanese version of the original Resident Evil. The intro was heavily cut and edited to remove shots of mangled corpses, which, I don't know, I guess it's kind of fair, but at the same time, like...
I think it worked out a little better. I've not seen the unedited Japanese version, but that opening cutscene, I mean, it is sort of cheesy B-movie acted, but they don't show you a whole lot of stuff, so you don't really know what you're getting into.
And it's a lot of fast-moving camera shots, too. Like, there's not a whole lot. Like, I'm sure the scenes that they do have, you probably would notice them if you saw them. Like, there's like a mangled Cerberus being shot or something like that, and Kenneth's severed head is somewhere in there. I do remember reading about that back then. That was like the big thing was like there's a severed head somewhere in the opening scene. So they cut that out. They cut out Chris smoking a cigarette. I think the intro is like black and white, right, on the original version versus color in the Japanese version. And much like some other games that were released in the US, they made it harder.
Yeah.
So they removed auto aim. That was totally disabled. Ink ribbons, which you need to save your game, those were reduced in their number. So there's very few of them. And they actually played around with the idea of killing interconnected boxes because you have these storage crates that are all throughout the mansion, and you could throw your inventory in there that you can't fit in your normal inventory, and they're connected all across the entire mansion and the entire game. They wanted to make it. I think Resident Evil Zero kind of did this, or what game did that?
Dino Crisis 1.
Dino Crisis 1.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
That was a pain.
A nightmare. Yeah. So they wanted to make it so wherever you stored in box A would stick to box A, and if you got the box B, well, good luck. You have to go back to box A wherever the hell you left that.
Resident Evil Zero was the one that did away with all boxes, so you could drop items on the ground.
Yeah.
But the problem was there were some points in that where you're not going to be able to return to that room. So whatever you dropped, bye-bye.
Exactly. Yeah. So that would have been awful in the first Resident Evil game if that was the case. And apparently even early preview versions had that feature, as we'll call it, enabled where it's like, the boxes weren't connected. And thank God that right before they went to production for the full release, they managed to go back on that and not make them, disconnect from each other.
When I played this I borrowed the original version from you recently, and I had never played it. I had only played the director's cut for the longest time while we were growing up. So this first time I'd go in there, and it was kind of like muscle memory. Once I remembered how to raise my gun, which is a little different than modern games. I remember being able to tap L1, I think it is, to auto aim to like refocus, and it wasn't doing that. And then I thought in my head, oh, that makes sense. This is the very first one ever. I did not know until I read your notes that it was a thing.
That's so funny.
And they took it away from me.
Yeah, because I do vividly remember that in the DualShock version where you would put your gun up, and it was almost like if you're off center just a little bit from wherever you're aiming at, it would just pull you over, which is great. That's all you needed.
You could even follow if the zombie's off screen, but it's walking. You could tell how far he's walking because he would constantly twitch.
Yeah. So they took out auto aim, and in general, Capcom or the American Capcom publishing studio was like, can you make this more difficult for people in the US because we want to make sure that they don't beat it in a few days. So that game was hard back then, and now I fully understand why. It's like they intended to make it more difficult than the Japanese version.
I know it's based on the rentals, like you don't want it to be beaten really quick, but this game is long. It's
pretty lengthy, especially if you're first playing through it because, there's a lot of backtracking. You're going to get lost.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I doubt there was anybody speed running this back then that could get through it in a weekend.
No way. I'd be shocked. Yeah. So we'll talk about a few other versions here, and then we're getting into the remake because this is really just sort of we want to do more of like a comprehensive look at both versions. We're probably going to be talking more about the remake because we have so much love for that one too. But
it's a good comparison. We can jump back and forth.
Exactly, yeah. But we'll kind of lay the groundwork for the other version that existed. So for the original, there was a Saturn port released in July '97. This one had an unlockable battle mode that had exclusive enemies. It had Zombie Wesker and a Gold Tyrants. The backgrounds had a little bit more detail, and the Japanese version has more gore, which is always cool. The new main game monsters were a reskin hunter that were called Ticks. And there was also a second Tyrant fight before Chris's final battle, and there was also new outfits for young Chris. So this was a bit of an enhanced port, and it's funny just because I sent you that screen cap of the EGM reviewer who compared this negatively to Alone in the Dark, and I
think we talked about this on Symphony of the Night.
Symphony of the Night, we're just kind of clowning it on because I was like, this is so ridiculous. He gave it a 6 out of 10 and said Alone in the Dark holds up better when I know that's just completely false.
Yeah.
Completely false. There was a director's cut for the PS1 that was released in September 97 and a DualShock edition in August 98. These two versions are more or less the same. It's just the DualShock version has DualShock support for like vibrations and analog control. But what's interesting about these versions is they were advertised as the uncut version, and Capcom blamed the localization issue that the black and white censored intro cutscene was still included in this version. So it's almost a little bit of false advertising where it's like it's uncut, but it's not uncut.
Yeah, there was like literally nothing director's cut about it. It was almost the exact same game, except there was that arrange mode that shuffled things up, and Jill and Chris started out with like 2 different outfits.
Yeah, they had newer outfits,
which I didn't like as much as the original.
Me neither. I just felt like they were lesser than, even though it was a cool bonus on there. Yeah.
And also the soundtrack.
Yeah, the soundtrack, it's got this really kind of farty symphonic sound, which at the time I didn't really notice because I was just, I played the DualShock Edition more than anything, really. And I didn't know the difference between the original. It's like the original is clearly better sounding.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And the new one just sounds like, I think you said way back when we discovered it just sounded like weird, like fart noises or something like that, right?
Yeah, farty horn.
Farty horn, yeah.
But like when I played this version, the original that I borrowed, I immediately knew within the first couple of rooms, I was like, oh, I can tell the difference in the soundtrack. And it sounds way more awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't even get to the rooms that involved the farty
Yeah, because there's some where you could definitely tell.
Yeah.
They stick out like a sore thumb when you know it.
And I remember I had always played Resident Evil 2 first, and I liked, the voice acting was a bit of an improvement over the first one, and the music definitely. So when I went back and played the director's cut, I just kind of chalked it up to, oh, this was the first game.
Yeah.
The music and the voice acting was bad. Then come to find out, oh no, the original was actually pretty badass.
Yeah, the original was great. I'm not totally sure why they changed the DualShock soundtrack. I'd imagine, I don't know, maybe the composer wasn't the composer. I don't know why they were changing it. It seems like such a weird thing to do because you have to invest development time to do that, right? Like someone has to compose the music.
Yeah.
They have to put it in the game, and it's like clearly they didn't uncut the intro cutscene. So what were they doing all this time?
Did they lose the master files for the
I don't know.
music?
It's a very bizarre choice, but if you go on YouTube, there's plenty of videos that compare them. There's definitely a difference, and you'll also ask like, what were they doing with this? Because it's just kind of silly.
Yeah.
There's also a Game Boy Color port that I had been looking forward to for the longest time back then. It was meant to be translated 1-to-1 from the PS1 game, which is just a ridiculous feat.
Yeah,
with Game Boy Color graphics, like everything was kind of side-scrolling, not really 3D, because it's the Game Boy Color. It's only going to be as immersive as it can be. Like it looked okay, and I waited for this thing, and eventually it was just canceled because there was almost no reason to release it. It just got, I'd imagine development just got to be too long in the tooth. Game Boy Advance was coming out because this was supposed to come out in early 2000.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and Game Boy Advance was 2001, so they probably figured, like, this just isn't worth it at this point.
But then they still had time to make Resident Evil Gaiden for Game Boy Color.
Which I liked a lot, but that one, I imagine, was probably done by a different team, and it was its own game. It wasn't trying to translate the PS1 version into this condensed portal version.
They really should have taken that and then poured it over Resident Evil 1, with the little go to first person, timing.
It would have worked a lot better.
Yeah, it would have been the same thing, and you would have recognized the rooms and the characters.
Yeah, because Gaiden's a pretty basic game. I enjoy it for what it is. Like, it's really basic, though. But that format would have worked with any of the Resident Evils, so to speak, because it was fine. It was limited, and it did the best with what it had. And then the other version we want to cover is a DS port called Deadly Silence. This is actually a really cool version. It was released in February 2006. The classic mode is basically the same exact version as the original PS1 version, except it uses the second screen for controls and some puzzles. There's a rebirth mode included that has more enemies and new puzzles that more utilize the DS touchscreen. Like there's a CPR minigame, which I totally forgot about.
Yeah,
you have to blow in the mic and I think do like chest compressions or something like that. And this was the first game that was rated M on the DS, which I thought was pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had this and I got it mainly just to have Resident Evil Portable at the time.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And I think you had to do CPR to the guy that got bit by the snake.
Yes.
Just to keep him alive a little longer while you go and get the little anti-venom thing. I really enjoyed this. I played it a lot in my first job at the museum, even if I did look like a maniac blowing into my little system.
Yeah, everyone did.
But I really enjoyed all of the touchscreen additions to this. Like, you could slash your knife. It actually made the knife kind of useful for the first time in any Resident Evil game.
Well, it felt a lot stronger.
Yeah,
it was actually really useful.
And then, like you said, they added a bunch of different puzzles that all actually still sort of made sense with the touchscreen.
And it looks great. I mean, it's a DS game, but it works so well with sort of porting the PS1 game that you don't really lose much in translation. It actually looks a little bit better than the PS1 version because, it's on 2006 hardware.
Yeah, they smoothed the edges.
Yeah, it's a great port. It's not released on anything else, unfortunately, so you have to buy like a hard copy. I know.
And they're pretty pricey now.
Yeah, the complete copy is like $80 to $100, I want to say, and I imagine the card's probably like $40 to $50, somewhere around there.
It's like my fourth or fifth highest one I have for DS right now.
It makes sense for DS. Yeah, DS. Some of those games are getting really pricey.
Yep.
Yeah. So I guess let's see. We'll get into some reviews for the original Resident Evil before we get into the remake talk. So I got a couple here. We got GamePro issue 91, April 1996. This was the cover story. They gave graphics a 5, sound a 5, controller 4.5, fun factor 5. These are all out of 5. They thought it masterfully blended challenging combat with brain-busting puzzles and exploration. The controls took some getting used to, and you'll die a lot at the learning curve, which I think is a fair assessment.
Yes.
Yeah. They thought load screens might annoy some people, and some minor complaints were, in general, they had some minor complaints, but they really had glowing praise around the graphics and the music, and they thought that this game was significant for pushing the PS1 hardware, which I agree with. Like, this was the second year of the PS1, and this game was definitely a great showcase for what the PS1 could do later on.
I think I died like a lot more in this one than I ever did in 2.
I feel like this was a lot harder than 2 in general.
Even though 2 was longer and it introduced a lot more different monster types and everything. This one, for some reason, I think it was the zombies seemed to take more bullets and they gave you less ammo.
Well, I was going to say, this to me is sort of like that parallel between Alien and Aliens, right? Like, the original Alien movie is more sci-fi horror and very slow, right? And, in Alien 2, like Resident Evil 2, it's more action-driven, even though it's rooted in sci-fi horror. Like it really has more guns, there's more ammo around, It's sort of that kind of dichotomy where it's like one is definitely more on the horror side of things where you have a lot less resources, and the other one's like more action-like, but still pretty difficult, So I felt the same way about the first game.
I would actually, surprisingly, disagree with one of the rankings on here. The control needs to be a little lower.
Yeah, the tank controls here don't favor that well, and again, for the time they were fine, but they're clunky. They feel awkward. It's hard to avoid things.
I mean, I played Resident Evil 2 so much, and then 3, like, you could easily dodge a lot of the zombies, and then Nemesis in 3, you could dodge. In this one, I was playing it, and it's probably the first time I've played one of the tank control originals in decades.
Yeah.
But you should have seen me in that first room where the map is up in the statue and you have to push the little steps around. Oh my God, it was a comedy of errors. I was like pushing, miss, nope.
Yeah, like you almost nudge yourself off.
Turn a little more. Uh-oh, did I push it too far? No, okay, I saved it. Now push back. No, move over. And it just took me, it had to have taken me like 3 or 4 minutes just to get this map out of this room. Whereas back in the day, I could easily go like scooch,
yeah,
2
you know
down.
exactly where it is.
Boom.
Yeah.
And this one, I really could have probably used the analog stick at that point.
Yeah, I think, for the time, maybe it's a 4.5. Because I think the thing, too, is like this game is pretty complex for all the things you have, all the functions you have, right? Because you have your inventory management, you have your, raising a gun, shooting a gun, you have your pushing, running, right? It's pretty complex. So maybe that's what we're looking at, because otherwise, like, you can nitpick too. Maybe I agree with you. Like 4.5 out of 5 is a little high.
Yeah.
Especially when it's so kind of clunky and stiff. But, I feel like these reviews were just so high on the Resident Evil that they're like, just give it as high scores as you can because it's just that damn good.
Yeah.
For the most part. EGM also reviewed this issue 82, May 1996. It was the game of the month, which was no surprise. It got an 8 out of 10, 9.599. The reviewer that gave an 8 was a little disappointed with the limitations of things you could interact with. Like, and he also thought the controls were a bit hard to pick up. The other reviewers just loved it, and they, one point out how it's not Alone in the Dark ripoff you might expect at first glance, which is an interesting change from the other reviewer for the Saturn version who thought it was just a ripoff of Alone in the Dark.
I know. It felt like these guys said all that on purpose to trash that other guy.
Well, this was before that review, though.
Oh, so really?
That's what I'm saying. Because the Saturn port was 97. So
oh,
this
that's
was
right.
Previous to this, yeah. So when this was fresh, they thought it was better than Alone in the Dark, and then somehow the guy must have been having a bad day. Thought it was
just
worse than
one dude out of
one guy out of the whole review
7
team.
or 8.
Yeah. They love the puzzles and challenges, and they said Capcom is leading the charge on making the PS1 a huge system, which is fair. Capcom was peak Capcom during this time.
Yep.
Best feature in the game, frightening. Worst feature, some of the views, which I think that's a fair criticism because there are some angles that really suck, especially if you're being chased by something and you might get caught going backwards or caught into another enemy who's around the corner because you couldn't see them.
Yeah, that happens more often than not. In this one, the most famous like scare is the dogs through the window.
Oh, absolutely. And it's like in the first 20 minutes of the game.
Yeah, it's like the third room you go into, and I knew it was coming, and I still jumped a foot off off the seat when that happened. I was like, I know it's coming. I was just trying to, I think, scooch forward on the wall to try and pick up something, and instead I triggered it.
Yeah, because I think there's a handgun ammo thing, like one of the little credenza things over there.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's right before the window bursts open.
And I was like, I know it's here. I know. Oh, too late. There I just had to run.
Yeah.
But I did notice with this version, some of the rooms you can go into are just completely empty for no reason.
Well, it's probably the impetus of a mansion, right? Like, there's going to be a lot of rooms that probably aren't going to be used.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a red herring. Like, they might want you to assume there's something in there.
But I feel
not.
I feel like in the director's cut, they sort of added some, like maybe a handgun clip or a green herb or something, so that like not all the rooms felt pointless.
Maybe, and that's probably also their way of balancing the game a bit too, right? Because if the original was tuned to be more difficult than the Japanese one, director's cut is literally like, okay, well, we have some time to place more items here. Like, we got more feedback from people saying like it was too hard.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think Resident Evil 1 is definitely, of the first Resident Evil games, that's definitely the hardest no matter what. Like, I've beaten 3 a billion times. I could beat 2 pretty easily now.
Yeah.
But Resident Evil 1 was always the one, no matter how many times I beat it, there was always something that could go wrong.
Yeah.
And it would totally screw me if you weren't, saving properly. All right, so I guess we'll get into the remake now, Deuce, before we get into like our deep thoughts and love for Resident Evil here. So the remake, this was developed over 14 months as part of an exclusivity deal with Capcom and Nintendo. This is only for the GameCube at the time. It was exclusive. And Mikami felt that the original had aged pretty poorly by this time. He thought that the GameCube's power would bring it closer to his original vision. And the dev team had considered recreating all the environments in 3D, but also realized that even then, like, it would just require too much hardware, which, pretty crazy to think that even the GameCube couldn't run what they were originally trying to plan for 3D environments.
Yeah.
So they landed on 3D models over pre-rendered backgrounds, but now with the GameCube, like, they had enhanced pre-rendered backgrounds, so now they were able to overlay little videos, so it looks like, like rushing water, or like when you see the tree branches, kind of like
the shadows
coming through the window and stuff like that.
Yep.
So that definitely adds like a next level of immersion there that wasn't in the original, because now there's like animations that are kind of creeping up on you and you think they're enemies, but they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. They also added defense items. Like there was Chris has, what does he have? He has like a little knife that he could stab in zombies if he's being attacked by one.
Oh no, Jill has
I think
that.
everyone has that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Chris has the lighter, right? That's his sort of his multi-use item.
No, he has a what do you call it? Flashbang.
Oh, is it the flashbang?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay, and Jill has the lockpick.
And then Jill has, well, for the defensive items, like Jill has a taser or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, somebody has a zappy thing. I remember that.
And they have like a dagger, I thought, for one of them. Yeah. So there's that. So they added those as sort of like one way to get zombies off you, because previous to that, if you're getting sort of chomped down by zombies, you just had to mash and hope that it didn't take as much health as you hoped it didn't.
And the crazy thing was, in the original, it didn't show you, like, you had to go to the pause menu to see your health. You didn't start limping or anything.
That's right.
That came in 2. Because I got chomped on a little bit in the first game, and I was like, oh, I seem to be doing okay. And then I would hit pause, and I'm in like dark orange for health, and I'm like,
I'm almost dead.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I'm in danger.
Oh my God. Yeah. All right. So what else was changed? So they added, so some of the puzzles were changed. They added items in new areas. The most notable one, which was immediately, my brother and I noticed off the bat, is the whole, there's like a graveyard kind of area. And there's also like this, I don't know, what would you call that? Like, it looked like a furnace area or something that's outside that has Lisa Trevor.
Oh, what do they call it? Is it a crematorium type thing?
Yeah, like a crematorium. There, that's probably the word for it. There you go. So there's a whole subplot involving her. Lisa Trevor was the daughter of George Trevor, who is the Spencer Mansion architect, which is, the mansion you're in this game. And and Spencer betrays Trevor by using Lisa for human experiments. So in here, she's basically like this invincible kind of boss you're not really meant to fight necessarily, and she's really creepy.
Yeah.
And it's pretty incredible that she was added because she does add a lot to the game for as little as she's in it.
Yeah, she actually is a kind of a key plot point for a lot of the future games. Mm-hmm. I believe she has like the Nemesis parasite in her. It's where it first sort of was born.
Yeah, it's like the beginnings of that. The early versions of it. Yeah.
And she ends up, spoiler alert, she ends up dying in this game, and then because none of the future games really mention her, I think maybe in Resident Evil 2 for N64 they added
like a lore diary or something like that. Yeah,
something like that, or one of the ports or something did, but she was never in originally planned for this, so you had to kill her off, and it still made sense to me. It wasn't like
it fit well. It didn't seem out of place or stick out. Yeah, it fit well as part of the game, which if you hadn't played Resident Evil previous to this, like you just assume it's part of the normal game.
Yeah.
But for everyone else who played Resident Evil 1 to death on PS1, you knew it was different. You're like, oh, this is actually really cool.
This is adding a lot of time to this game.
So they added Lisa Trevor to the game. The animation was a mix of motion capture this time around, which wasn't present in the original. Everything was just like hand animated, which I think you could plainly tell without anyone telling you.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're really stiff animations. They move their hands in awkward ways to articulate that they're talking.
Oh, yeah. And they had to wave their arms to show that they were emoting.
For who's talking. It's really silly. So they add motion capture, which definitely elevates the animation in this game. You could definitely tell there's a difference in that fidelity. And Capcom, really, their intent here was to achieve motion picture quality visuals and create an even more suspense and fear than the original, which, my God, they succeeded in spades in this version. So one of the things I want to talk about the remake before we get into like the story of the game and everything else was sort of the controversy of remakes at this time. Because in early 2002, remakes weren't really a thing. Like nowadays, remakes are like bread and butter of consoles.
A dime a dozen.
Everything's being remade, remastered. What's old is new again.
We just talked about how Dead Space and Resident Evil 4 came out 2 or 3 months apart.
Yeah, and those were 15, 20 years after the original games. Right?
Yeah.
So, but at this time, like I remember, like people being there was equal parts excitement and equal parts skepticism of people who were thinking like this game just came out 5-6 years ago. What do you mean we're playing for Resident Evil again,
And it's so wild that, like, if you saw the screenshots, you were like, no, this seems very necessary compared to, like, The Last of Us or The Last of Us 2 getting that remake, and you're like, there's no difference.
Yeah.
These are the same picture.
Well, it's like, exactly, like, that is a lot hard to see in still photos, right? Because if you played The Last of Us 2 remastered, there's a difference when it's in motion.
Yeah.
But in screenshots, it's a lot harder to tell. Whereas with, the PS1, the leap from PS1 to GameCube, like the moment I saw the remake, my brother and I were just stupidly excited. We couldn't wait to play this damn game.
Me too.
Right? And so once it was released, everyone shut up, of course, because they quickly realized how good of a remake it was. And to me, that's still one of the best remakes of all time. Like, to me, I could go back to Resident Evil Remake anytime and just enjoy it. And also, I think that everything about it holds up, with the exception of maybe the controls.
Even those have...
they're not too bad.
Yeah.
But they're not,
I mean, they're tank controls. Yeah. Everybody's going to have their opinions about that. But for being a GameCube game, which back in the day, GameCube was always kind of seen as like the lesser of the three.
Yeah.
Like the little kid brother of PlayStation 2 and Xbox. But they had some amazing looking games. Like, look at the water effects on Wave Race and Mario Sunshine.
And that was a launch game. Like, Wave Race to me is still one of the most impressive water effects in a GameCube game for freaking 2002.
And then you get
2001, I should say.
And then you get this Resident Evil remake, and to this day, like, maybe they've polished it up a little bit for the re-release on Xbox and PlayStation 4, but it didn't need anything else.
No.
It didn't need a remake.
Yeah, the pre-rendered backgrounds in here hold up really well. They look very nice, and like they've just nailed atmosphere and lighting. Like, it's just such a great example of how to do horror and remade horror. So once it was released, of course, like I said, everyone shut up. It's right now it's sitting. I would say right now, like it's been reviewed recently, but it was at a 91 out of 100 on Metacritic, which is definitely one of the most highly rated GameCube games ever. In addition to that, like a lot of reviews at the time, I didn't pull specific reviews, but in general, reviews thought that it just was a new take on Resident Evil, and it created even more dread without over relying on gimmicks or shock value. It won a ton of Best of awards in 2002. And surprisingly, Capcom only sold 1.3 million copies, which I find to be baffling. But part of me is like, well, you released it on the GameCube, which, like you just said, it's sort of like a kid's system, which I don't say kids, but it's like a younger system. It's not like the Xbox or PS2. But at the same time, like it's like, yeah, you released it on that system, which didn't sell like normal Nintendo, like Switch, like 140 million. It's like, it's really surprising when it sold 1.3 million, especially when you consider how much Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, and Code Veronica sold poorly. But the first 3 games sold so well. So it's kind of a surprise it didn't sell that well on the GameCube.
And Code Veronica was the same reason as this. Like, Dreamcast didn't sell
well.
Yeah,
it's such a small install base. Yeah, you're kind of shooting yourselves in the foot.
I feel like 1.3 is actually impressive for the GameCube because that seems like if you had a GameCube, you had Resident Evil the remake.
That's also true, yeah. Because I don't know how many. I should have looked up how many GameCubes were actually sold. Because I know it's like it's better than the Wii U, which isn't saying much. But I know that it's technically a failure for Nintendo, which is interesting because I'm like, the GameCube felt like a success to me, but I'm not in the financials of Nintendo. I don't know. Yeah. All right, Deucy. So finally, we've talked about the bits and pieces of development and everything. So let's get into the main game here. The story, for those who are not known with the story of Resident Evil, this game starts on July 24th, 1998, when the Special Tactics and Rescue Service, known as STARS, are investigating the cannibalistic homicides in the Arklay Mountains in Raccoon City. Initially, the Bravo team is sent out the previous night, and they lose radio contact, and the Alpha team, which is the team you're playing as, mobilizes, and they're investigating the disappearance of the Bravo team and also to complete the mission, which is to find out what the hell's going on at Spencer Mansion in the Arklay Mountains.
Meanwhile, in just that one night, Resident Evil 0 happens.
Yeah, and then a little bit after this, within a few days, Resident Evil 2 happens.
Yes.
So it's really, I love how Resident Evil just connects all of that within a few games, even though the games are spread out over a few years. So the game, you start out playing as Jill or Chris. Those are your two options, just a male and female. Jill, in general, I think is a little bit easier across both versions. Like she has a little bit more ammo, right?
No, she has 2 extra item slots.
That's right.
And you get the lockpick right away, like you mentioned earlier, which unlocks a lot of doors in this.
It does.
It was very impressive.
It's a great gimmick. I'm glad that they made that like a proper, sort of inventory. I don't know what you want to call it, like permanent inventory item kind of thing.
Yeah, it doesn't take up a space.
Yeah, which is nice. So the Alpha team, I guess we'll go over some of the characters, just some of the main lead characters, I should say. The Alpha team that you're playing as, like you come in with Jill, Chris, Albert, and Barry. They're really sort of like the iconic 4 that start the game in the mansion.
They're the ones with lines.
Yeah, and they're also alive. Yeah, that's the other side of things. There's some other team members that are dead. Like there's Joseph Frost. There's Brad Vickers, who's also dead. He dies in the helicopter crash, I think, by...
No, he was the one who runs away. He flies away.
Oh, flies away. That's right. He's dead in Resident Evil 2. That's what I'm confusing.
Because Nemesis gets him.
That's right. Nemesis gets him. That's right. So really, the bulk of the game, like you're supposed to be searching for the Bravo team, and as you uncover more of the game, you discover that there's this company called Umbrella that's doing these bio, experiments with a virus. There's an underground lab. There's an underground lab.
That was impressive.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the things about the scope of this game that I couldn't grasp as a kid, because going into 3D era, like we're going from Super Nintendo, which really, I don't know, what would you say is like the biggest games back then, like Final Fantasy and.
For story wise, or
just in terms of scope, right? Like as far as
Final Fantasy
vastness of the game, right?
3/6, Zelda.
Zelda's pretty lengthy, but they're pretty few and far between. But this is also in a 3D space. Now there's so many interconnected, buildings, facilities, all to the mansion. Because initially when you're in the mansion, like you're exploring everywhere, and like, there's only so many floors. I think there's 2 floors. There's of course back rooms and whatever else. There's hidden areas. And then later on, you unlock like you access to a biolab.
First you go outside. There's a whole courtyard. There's a whole second house where, like, I guess the servants would be staying.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, that leads down into this expansive lab, which had like I want to say 3 basement floors just in that alone. Oh, yeah, there was also that weird cave system that you randomly...
Yeah, that part was always the hardest for me. And also because there's those giant spiders in there, too.
Yeah, that was creepy.
I feel like that part of the game was the part I had the most difficulty with at any time I played through it.
Well, in the original game, like, the caves didn't look that impressive. It all kind of looked very samey. You could get lost easy. But on top of that, there were spiders. I hated that part.
Me too. My brother was absolutely hated that part, especially with the big gray spider. I forgot what it was called.
Oh, yeah.
He was like the boss of that area.
Yeah.
And then, eventually there's a part where there's a giant shark. I think, is that only in the remake? I can't recall.
No, it's in both.
Isn't it in both? That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I just remember looking really impressive in the remake too when I got to that. Like, I remember my buddy was over and we were playing it. And like he was doing that thing like you did with Astrobot, where he was just running through the water, just like looking at it.
Oh yeah,
he's like, look at the splashing effects. Look at how it's like just doing this and that. And like it's 2002 water. And then the shark came out, and that kind of changed things for him.
You're like, nope, gotta go.
Can't be high in the water anymore. Yeah.
In the first game, the room that's in, the way the camera is, you basically go into it, run through the water over to the next door. And if you ever see the shark on screen, you're screwed.
Yes, I do remember that.
So that's why you probably don't remember it too well, is because like you never wanted to see it.
Yeah.
Until you drain the water, and then it's like flopping around out there.
Then you just laugh at it.
But then in the remake, they really made it like a whole cutscene battle with it.
I do remember that because it was almost like Jaws chasing you in some ways. Yeah, like you'd see the fin peeking through the surface of the water.
Yep.
Yeah, it was awful. So as the story goes on, well, actually, I guess we get into the other bits and pieces too. Like, there's a lot of puzzle elements with this game. I think that's one of the most fun things about these survival horror games is, for one, you're forced to explore everywhere. Like I was kind of talking about Silent Hill 2 on the last episode we did. Like the reason why I love that so much is because I've kind of had to rediscover how to play these old survival horror games where it's like you're meant to explore every room because there might be something you're missing that's either a key item or it might be a helpful item. And in this instance, there's a lot of these puzzles that I think would probably normally considered obtuse, right? Like with the crests. It's like, where am I going to get these crests? Why is this a thing? Why is this unlocking a mechanism in here, you know?
I was just thinking about that the other day with like the Resident Evil 2 remake compared to the original, and I'm like, they sort of took some things out completely in that because it just made no sense in that game. And in this first one, I feel like they added more.
Well, I feel like they had a lot more, and also it felt like it was just to make the game longer because you're also backtracking more too, right? Because if you have more puzzles and you need more key items like you're exploring more.
In this remake, you got to get those 4 masks, and all it does is unlock like a super zombie down underneath, which wasn't in the first game at all.
Yeah.
Like in the first game, you got some keys, and those unlocked other doors, and then you needed like 2 medallions to get down into the lab. That was it.
Yes. and also we should talk about very quickly the added enemies in the original remake that were nightmares.
God.
The Crimson Heads.
Yes.
So, by this time when the remake came out, my brother and I had played the original so much that we probably knew it like the back of our hand.
Yep.
And we read about Crimson Heads, which is a brand new type of zombie and probably one of the most menacing enemies in the game because
worse than hunters.
They're worse than hunters because they have like this red shade to them. So they're also they take more damage. They do more damage.
They're fast.
They're faster, and also they can chase you through rooms. That was the whole thing. That was like your safety net in the original game. Was like if you didn't want to fight something, you could just go through a door, wait through the load screen, and that's it. You could kind of hang out for a moment before you go back in and figure out how you want to dodge it.
Yeah. But
the Crimson Heads would follow you across rooms. And in addition to that, to make sure they were dead, you had to light them on fire, like incinerate them. But you needed to get the gas, or I think it was kerosene, actually, something like that, from like the save rooms or wherever you could find it. So you had limited uses on top of that.
You only had 2 per pour.
Yeah. So you had to guess. You had to wait. Like, should I, use it on this Crimson Head here, or should I save it later, or because he's going to get up at some point and chase me if I'm not out of here soon enough.
Luckily, they only got up if you went back in the room, so you could sort of like strategize. I'm never going to go back into this room again.
That's true.
I won't need to burn him. But this one is in like a main hallway. I definitely need to get rid of him.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that was like one of the most meaningful additions to the remake.
Yep.
Because it added another sense of fear and something to be afraid of, because now you knew something could seek you through all the doors. There's nowhere was really safe if you can't encounter with these things.
But you could also like take off their heads, and then they wouldn't come back.
Oh, that's true too. You could pop off their heads
before they were even crimson. So I want to say there was like some guns you could unlock, some regular pistols that upped the percentage of decapitations.
That's right. I do remember that. And then if you aimed up with a shotgun, that was one way to get it, but then you had to waste a shotgun shell.
Yeah.
I think the Magnum also had a chance to pop heads off.
That was like almost a guarantee.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Regular zombies.
Yeah. Some of the other characters we'll talk about before we get into sort of like the end story here. There's Barry Burton. He's part of the Alpha team. He's like the older, seasoned veteran guy. He's kind of like the, I don't know how else you would describe him, but he's sort of like the dad of the group in a way.
He's like the wise veteran.
Yeah, the wise, that's a good way
Even though, I mean, they all sort of joined stars at the same time.
Yeah.
But him and Chris were apparently like regular cop partners too, even before that. And somehow he was a little older than the rest of them, and he was like the gun aficionado.
Yeah, he was like the gun nut guy.
Yeah.
who also has a family, which plays into a plot twist later on.
Yep.
Yeah. There's also part of the Bravo team, one of the only survivors you find. I think she's the only survivor, actually, Rebecca Chambers. So she's part of the initial Bravo team that went into the mansion to discover, what's going on with these murders. And you find her later on, and she becomes like your, I don't know what you want to call it. She's not a sight. She's like a character who kind of follows you for part of the game.
Yeah, she's with Chris.
With Chris, yeah.
And
she plays into his story as well later on.
She's the star of Resident Evil 0, which is funny that they don't even mention, like, oh, hey, I just had to deal with a whole bunch of leeches.
Yeah.
And now I'm in here.
A convict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, she's supposed to be the rookie on Bravo team and the rookie in general.
Yeah, she looks really young. She's probably, like, literally, like, 18 in this game.
But what you have to go through in that other game, it's like she's more battle-hardened than anybody in this mansion right now.
Yeah. She's like, you guys are fighting zombies? That's all? Yeah. And then the other major character that would have, major implications later is Albert Wesker, he's a bit of a scientist, but he's also part of STARS. And it turns out he's really just the mole working undercover for Umbrella, because later in the game, towards the end, you find out that he's really just behind everything. He's sort of like an agent of Umbrella. He's there to secure the virus. And he unleashes the Tyrant, which, my God, Deucy, what a freaking boss that was when I was younger.
I do remember that whole cutscene. Like I know there was a lot of talk about the voice acting in the original game, and even to a lesser extent the remake. Like, it wasn't 100% perfect, but it was a lot better.
It was, yeah. They re-recorded a lot,
but just like the cutscenes alone were great for this storytelling. And just the first time that he drains the thing, and then the Tyrant comes smashing out of the tube, and then you immediately know what's going to happen.
Yep. Yeah, and then the Tyrant comes out, and it's great because he impales Wesker first.
Yeah.
So this is where you not at the time, you know Wesker's dead.
Yeah.
Right? You just figure, like, he's got impaled. There's no way he's dead. Everyone else in this game is dead except for, like, 4 people.
I mean, he's the bad guy. He's the reason you're all crashed there. Good riddance.
Yeah. And then when you play as Chris... Rebecca, you have to save Rebecca, because there are multiple endings in this game as well, depending on who you save. And, I forgot what the intersection points are, but it's basically like you have to save one or the other, or make certain decisions that will allow you to save them.
Yeah, right towards the end. Like, I think it's when the little emergency siren is blaring, but it's before the timer.
Yeah, like you have to make sure you go get her before that. And that's really just sort of the end point where there's point of no return at that point.
Yeah.
And same with Barry. Barry... He's sort of like the guy who got, coerced to work with Wesker to kind of screw everybody, because his family was at risk. Wesker and Umbrella threatened Barry's family of killing them, and Barry didn't want them to sort of, destroy the facility and the lab, because he's like, they're going to kill my family.
Yeah.
So you can save him as Jill. That's part of his thing as well, her ending as well, as like if you make a decision on how to save him.
And if you do, then he comes in, I think, and helps you... I want to say he helps you against the Tyrant, or he does something.
Yeah, I think he shoots him with the Magnum or something, right? Yeah. And then the end of the game takes place on a helipad. So you're fighting the Tyrant again, which is even more scary because this guy could, like, bulldoze you. He moves fast.
He just has, like, a dashing slash that's going to knock you down to danger, like,
exactly.
right away.
And I think the whole idea here is you're either supposed to damage him until to a certain point where the rock is dropped. I think it's also after a timer. Like if you're low on resources, which is possible.
Yeah.
You might be running around for a few minutes before Brad drops the rocket launcher and you blast the Tyrant to bits.
I remember the first time I saw that, and it was, to me, it was sort of a funny moment. I guess because I had played Resident Evil 2 before, but when I played this one and I blew him up, he blows up into triangles.
Yeah, he just blows up into a bunch of bits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it made me chuckle because after facing like the G virus in the second game, that's like just a massive ugliness and everything, and then the entire train explodes. In this one, it's just like one rocket to almost a crotch shot.
Yep.
And then he blows up into pixels.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that too, because I remember there was a playthrough my brother and I were using the Game Shark. And what would happen is we would get the rocket launcher early with that. And I didn't know this was happening. I thought it was my PS1 doing this, but I think it locks the game because you have the rocket launcher too early. So if you shoot the Tyrant too early, what happens is it goes through those camera cuts, except it freezes right on the Tyrant's ass. And the game just freezes. My brother and I are like, what's going on? Like, is the disc broken? Is the PS1 broken? You know?
Nope. This is your reward.
Yeah, and it was suck because the save point wasn't right outside the door, from what I recall. So we do it again and again. It's like, is it the disc? Like, what's the deal? And the only thing we could conclude was that it was because we were using the Game Shark. We were kind of shooting it too early. And maybe it was something like where we waited to where Brad dropped the rocket launcher and then used it to trigger the end.
Oh yeah.
But there was at least 2 or 3 times where we were just staring at the tyrant's ass right in our face, being like, "Why did it freeze here? Like, is this just playing a joke on us? Like, what do we do?"
Yeah, that's to troll all you cheaters.
It must have been, because it just was like every that same frame every time. We're like, "What's going on here? This makes no damn sense." But yeah, it's pretty funny.
I played both of these back to back recently to refamiliarize myself, and I didn't realize how similar the scripts are. Like, the opening scene is obviously 2 different things. Like, you don't have the live action acting, but the voiceover narration is very similar. And actually, for the first game, the voiceover narration was 100 times better than the voice acting during the game.
Oh yeah. Well, we discovered, because there's a great book that came out, I guess it was last year, a couple years ago. I don't even know now. Time goes by so fast. It's called Itchy Tasty, The Unofficial History of Resident Evil, something like that.
Man, was that? I think that was way back around the pandemic time too.
Well, I think that's why I say I think I got it in 2022. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I know I read through it pretty quickly. And
yeah,
it was
me too.
A while ago. Yeah, but it's a fantastic book by the author. I think his name is Alex Anil. And he covers essentially the entire development and the history of Resident Evil 1 through up to about 4. And because we knew the voice acting in the original game was bad, but we were like, why is it so bad? Beyond the fact that it's just voice acting in its infancy on the PS1.
Yeah.
It turns out that a lot of the actors were getting scripts out of sequence, or have to film scenes out of sequence, so they had no real context for what their character was doing, what they're supposed to have been feeling. So that's why the voice acting now I can forgive it more, because it's like, I'd imagine they did the best with what they could, and they're just like, I don't know how to act. Like, I don't know how this character's supposed to express themselves.
They also had, it was like Japanese people who just spoke English.
That's also true too.
Yeah,
they're directing English actors.
They were limited in who they could hire.
Yeah, and imagine the budget wasn't so high for voice actors and everything, so there's a lot of play. Like, it's easy to crap on it, and rightfully so, because it just sounds so cheesy and goofy. But there's a real reason why it sounded cheesy and goofy at the same time, Yeah. All right, Deuce. So I guess we'll get into some speedruns here real quick. I got a few. These are mostly for the PS1 version and the GameCube version. Because if we haven't noted before, this game has been ported quite a bit over the last couple decades. Mostly the remake, because that's really the ideal way to play Resident Evil 1 is with the remake. So there's the remake remastered. It's on PS4, Xbox. It's on Switch, which I have that version. And, when I first played it, like, my mind was kind of blown for that moment where it's like, this is what we used to play on our TVs and whatnot. Now I'm like playing handhelds.
Yeah.
And it looks amazing, right? It's not like the Game Boy Color version or something.
I was going to say, you were so desperate to get a handheld version, and now we just
have like the actual, it's really amazing. That's why it blows my mind sometimes when I think about how games are and, what we grew up with and everything. But that's a whole different thing. But anyways, the speed runs. I got a few here. So PS1, Jill Bad Ending. It's done in an hour. These are all by Reclesis. I don't know how to pronounce this. Reclesis.
That looks about right.
Yeah, they're all about an hour. So they did Jill Bad Ending. They did about an hour. Jill Best Ending, 1 hour, 9 minutes. Or I should say, stipulate this. Reclesis did it in 1 hour, 9 minutes, 32 seconds. And Bakba Soup, who's a really cool runner I like to watch.
I've seen them at AGDQ.
Yeah. They do a lot. They're really good. They're really cool. They do a lot of Resident Evil runs. They did it in 1 hour, 9 minutes, 57 seconds. So they're behind by like 25 seconds. It's really crazy. PS1.
And this is PS1.
This is PS1, yeah. PS1, Chris Bad Ending, also by Reclesis, 57 minutes, 13 seconds. Chris Best Ending, 1 hour, 6 minutes, 32 seconds. And on the GameCube side, we have Any Percent Jill by Elevo, 1 hour, 26 minutes, 50 seconds. And then GameCube Any Percent by Chris by Sonic, 1 hour, 31 minutes, 11 seconds. And in general, there's not many runners in that category for a reason. But I really only got the GameCube and PS1 versions because there's like the DualShock edition, there's the Director's Cut version, there's this version, that version. I just got like the real basic versions for the speedrunners.
I can't imagine the times are too different.
They're probably really similar, yeah.
But it's just interesting to look at like the bad ending for PS1, meaning you can just race through, you don't care what you get. is an hour flat, and then the GameCube added 26 minutes and 50 seconds worth of content that you have to go through.
Of whatever you used to do. And I imagine like there's probably some glitches that were eliminated and there's probably different ways to get through areas. But yeah, that's a half an hour speed running game, which for normal people probably equates to like, a couple hours. Yeah. A couple hours extra content. I don't know. All right, Deucy. Well, I guess we're kind of at the end of our Spencer Mansion tour. I don't know, what final words do you have about Resident Evil, the remake, and just the first game in general?
I think it's grown on me a lot over the years. I know the remake is just so impressive, and I would always point to it as like what remakes now should aspire to. But like I've said, Resident Evil 2 was always my favorite. It got me into PlayStation and all of that. But Resident Evil 1 has really, moved up the list. Even the original, for all its cheesiness, it's still fun to go into, and I know where to go and what to do. Yeah, I would still play these today. And there was that rumor that, Resident Evil 1 might be getting another remake, which I'm fine with. Like, this GameCube one is amazing, but if they do that over-the-shoulder thing that they've been doing with all these recent remakes...
Oh my god, it'd be amazing.
I will play it all over again.
I'll buy it all over again. I'll buy it on whatever system comes up.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I mentioned earlier in the episode, like, this remake is one of my favorites ever. I think I still stand by it as being, like, one of the best remakes ever in gaming. And it's, it really is a testament to, like, how to properly do a remake. Because there are a lot of remakes that come out or remasters, and it's just, like... Either they lose of what made the original special, or they're just poorly made. And this, it was pretty bold and risky to do. Like 6 years after the original, they basically built the game from the ground up again, and just enhanced everything what they wanted. Like Mikami was saying, like he wanted to make it closer to his original vision. And when we consider
if this is his original vision, holy crap!
That's what I'm saying, right? Like if this is what you want to do on the PS1, but physically couldn't because of the hardware, and this is what we got 6 years later, like holy crap! Like good for him. You know? And again, it's like it's one of the most significant horror games in gaming history as well. Like there's a lot of games that spawned off of this. Like, Silent Hill is a series that would arguably may not exist if it were not for Resident Evil, because I don't know if Konami would have done Silent Hill if Resident Evil didn't exist, right? Because even at the time, like we said, horror games were a bit of a risk. They weren't so mainstream as they were now, and it's like a lot of companies probably weren't going to deal with a horror game at the time. So for me, Resident Evil it's one of the most special games in my heart, in my gaming life. I have a lot of memories for it, and I think it's one that, I could easily play it any time. No matter what, and I'll buy it over and over again.
Not only did it spawn all those competitors, but look at the wide range of games we've gotten in this series alone. Yeah. Like from Resident Evil Survivor, a crappy like first-person version, to like Umbrella Corps, which I know you never want to speak of. Oh my god!
I'll speak how terrible it is. Yeah, legitimately terrible.
But that is like a Call of Duty type game in the Resident Evil world.
It's not even. It's insulting to even call it close to Call of Duty. Yeah. But it's a different game. We'll say.
But it's like that just shows you all the different genres they're trying to touch on. Mm-hmm. I recently heard about a canceled game that was supposed to look into Wesker's not past, but like the time between when he gets stabbed to like what makes him turn against Umbrella.
Oh, that would have been great, because that's really what's missing is how he still survived that.
Yeah. And it was supposed to be sort of action-y like an Uncharted game, which blows my mind. It would have been an awesome like narrative to have you play as Wesker in sort of this like linear Uncharted story.
Yeah. I think it would have been really interesting. And now I think Capcom is, they've had so much success with the remakes and all the everything else they're doing that's been like a hit. Like I don't think Capcom has had one bad game in like this generation since PS4. Like they had that lull period and like with the 360 PS3.
Yeah.
And like I don't know, PS4 and since then that Xbox One era, like they've just been hitting all the hits.
They must have changed some people.
I think well else they realized like, look, they'll sell if we make good games.
Yeah.
So
remakes.
And remakes, yeah. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to do like that Wesker game, but I feel like, I know Resident Evil 9 is supposed to get announced sometime soon. Like people are saying it's coming, and
there's already been like leaks, quote unquote.
Yeah. So I just feel like they're probably going to continue on the horror train, which I'm fine with. But I think it'll always be great if they could experiment a little more and kind of break out the boundaries of Resident Evil. I think it's always a good thing.
I'm not opposed to those side stories, but just make them good.
Yeah, that's all we ask for. Just I'll buy good games. I don't care. Just don't give me Umbrella Corps for God's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Deucy. Well, If anyone out there wants to send us memories of Resident Evil or anything else in general, just want to chat us up, you can email us at legiongamingpod.com. We're on Threads a little bit more since we dumped Twitter. Twitter's just a cesspool of just awful. On Threads, we're at Legion Gaming Podcast. And most importantly, you can find us on Instagram at Legion Gaming Podcast. That's usually where we're most vocal and posting the most stuff. Deucy, any final words before we go through our loading screen door?
You are dead.